If you don't know where you've come from, you cannot know where you're going. And yes, it's important to be present in the moment, plan for the future, but always acknowledge the past. Welcome to the Personal Branding Podcast with me, Olive Gachara. And in this episode, I would like us to do a personal brand audit. What does that mean? It's pretty much analyzing what your personal brand looks like to date. Yes, it's important to know where we intend to go, but also look back and see what you've been able to achieve, because I know you have achieved many fantastic feats. So that as you're planning for the future, you're also playing on some of the strengths of what you've achieved in the past. As we review your personal brand, we shall focus specifically on your personal brand equity. Your personal brand equity is a measure of the influence you have on the environment around you. And I believe that the main purpose of personal branding is to be able to increase your personal brand equity. So I shall give you some tools or ask you some key leading questions that you can be able to use to start measuring where you are and see if that is where you want to be, or if not, how far short you are, so that you know what you need to do, even as you're working on developing your strengths, as you're working on your visibility, and all the amazing things that we have talked about in previous episodes. If this is your first time listening to the Personal Branding Podcast, karibuni sana, welcome on board. And we shall start by redefining what personal branding is. Your personal brand is an experience created over time. It owns a singular distinction. It's specific, not generic. It creates perceived quality, and it delivers a consistent promise. So, as you're developing your personal brand, or as you're thinking about what your personal brand equity is, think, what promise are you giving? And do you actually deliver on the promise that you're giving? Pretty much go back and look at everything that we've talked about in this personal branding series as building blocks towards creating your brand. But today, we are focusing on looking backwards and seeing what we've been able to achieve and how we can measure that into something quantifiable that we can be able to build on. Before we get into unpacking your personal brand equity or going through your personal brand equity evaluation, I shall give you 4 measures of personal brand equity so that you can be able to understand the things that you need to look at, or the things that you need to be aware of as you're curating your personal brand and as you're also giving or taking stock of where you've been. We have brand differentiation. Brand differentiation, of course, is the thing that makes you stand out from everybody else. For example, if you look at a presidential campaign, you have 2 very strong political brands running head to head. Sometimes there could be more, but there's always the 2 main contenders, right? And the one way to stand out is by showing what is different between you and the other person. That could be through the things that you have done in the past or the things that you intend to do in the future. If it's a murkier campaign, it will be about throwing shade on the other person so that you can shine. I've never understood why people think that works. But what I want you to focus on is the work that goes behind differentiating 2 different political candidates. Like literally, you have black and white, you have red and blue, which are not going into too many other colors. And the one way to make one stand out from the other is by focusing on all the achievements and strengths that one individual has over the other. So what is that thing that differentiates you from everybody else? We shall talk about your competition in a future episode so that you also know who am I differentiating myself against. But one of the key things you want to think about when you're thinking about brand equity is that thing that differentiates you from everybody else. That thing that makes you stand out head and shoulders above the crowd. We also have relevance. It is said that relevance is the only job security that exists in today's business world, especially in this new age of AI and technology, and everything is being automated, and now you don't need a web designer. You can go and use a certain tool for like $2 and you have a full website in like 10 minutes, So even as you're not just analyzing your own personal brand, and I'll digress for a little bit because it's so much fun to digress. Also think about the courses that you're taking. If you have kids, what are they learning in school? What do they want to go and study in university? Is that relevant to what the future job place will look like? There's a whole story and a whole conversation about what future employment will look like 10, 20, 30 years from now. And I can guarantee you it will look absolutely nothing than as it looks today, right? So, relevance is only job security that exists in today's business world. The skills and the tools that you have, are those relevant to your workplace? Are those relevant to your role? How does relevant come into play? It's not just essential for entrepreneurs and for creatives. It's also very, very essential if you're employed. Because while some people are being headhunted, other people are being let go. Why will someone be headhunted and even be given a promotion plus type benefits while somebody else is being let go? It is because the former is probably upskilled in ways that are relevant as opposed to the latter. So, where you are in life today, how relevant are your skills? How relevant are your talents? How relevant is the work that you do in the first place? The third measure of brand equity is knowledge or visibility. Do people know that you're there? Remember, doing business without advertising is like winking at a girl in the dark, right? You know what you're doing, but nobody else does. So, despite the skills that you have, so yes, the skills that you have are relevant. Yes, you are distinctive and you stand out over everybody else because you're the best at what you do. But do people know that you're there? Or are you sitting somewhere hoping that people are going to come and fish you out so they can give you business, or they can give you a promotion, so they can give you a raise? So measure how visible you think you are, or how aware people are of you. And when they're aware of you, what are they aware of? When somebody thinks about you, Jane, what are they thinking about? When someone thinks about you, Patrick, what are they thinking about? Is it relevant to the job or to the role or to the skills that you have, or are they thinking about something completely unrelated? And lastly, we have your credibility or your brand esteem. How highly do people hold your skills, your services, your experience? There's some people, you can literally be at par in terms of experience and exposure, but someone will have a bit more credibility than the other because of some small nuances that you really cannot put on a spreadsheet. Esteem is something that, yes, you hold of yourself, but something that also other people hold of you. So how highly do people esteem you and the work that you do? What type of respect do you get when you walk into a room? What type of respect do people have of your opinions? What type of respect do people have of your contribution? Or are you just that guy or that chick who may as well be a fly on the wall because all you're doing is showing up on that Zoom call, not really contributing, and even if you contribute, no one really pays attention? So you're just sort of there ticking a box so you can be able to pick your paycheck, right? These are some hard questions or some hard things to look at, and we shall go through how you can be able to actually measure your personal brand equity so that you can know how well or how badly you're doing and how you can move on from there. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. As you do your personal brand audit, I shall ask you some leading questions that will help you analyze where you are and review if that is where you want to be or what you need to do to get to where you need to be. So take a paper and a pen and note these questions down. You can answer them with me by pausing as you listen or watch me. I've also put them in the description alongside this podcast to sort of guide you or to ensure that you actually come back to them and answer them in as much detail as possible. And we shall start with what you're currently known for. So, what are you currently known for? When people think about you, what are the 5 things that they think about when they think about you? This could be personal, this could be professional, this could be social. Remember, personal branding is a 3-legged stool. And as you're doing your personal brand audit, it's important that it's all rounded so that you're not just focusing on your professional life. If you want to create an authentic personal brand, it has to be as all-rounded as possible so that you're not living 2 different lives. You're not one person at home and then another person in the workplace, then another person when you go to the disco. Completely, if someone sees you out there, they're like, what? Is that Angie? Lies. And you all know that you've seen those people, right? So your 3-legged stool stands for your personal life, your professional life, and your spiritual life, whatever that looks like. So what are you currently known for? List mentally, preferably, actually write down 5 things that you're currently known for today. And then think to yourself, are these the things that I want to be known for? If not, write 5 things that you'd like to be known for in the next year or so. In fact, it's a great thing that this podcast is rolling out towards the end of the year because I like to use a calendar year to measure my brand equity or to review my brand equity. So those 5 things that you're known for, are those the same things you'd like to be known for in the next 2 to 3 years? If not, write down 5 other things you'd like to be known for. And one day at a later date, we shall unpack what you need to do about those things and how you can get there. Second, how does your current job or profession challenge you? It's important to have challenges, right? In fact, we always find that if you're in a role where you're not feeling challenged, you start getting bored, you start focusing on other things. That's when the side hustles start coming up, because when you're not challenged, you're not growing, right? So on that piece of paper, write 5 ways your current job challenges you. And if you find that you're not challenged, maybe that's a call to action for you to either bring in new challenges, find a way to develop an additional skill that could challenge you, or look for another role that could add a challenge to your life. For example, my life was beginning to get very predictable and almost, dare I say, boring. Because when I go for trainings, I train the same thing. And it's actually really weird. Like, you have the same jokes at the same point. Even when you say the joke, you know how to pause, and then guys will laugh. And then after they laugh, this is another joke. Like, you do the exact same thing over and over again. It was literally driving me mad. So literally, you could have 5 trainings in 1 week. That's a very good week. You could have 5 trainings in 1 week. We're talking about, let's say, customer communication and professional image, and you go and you regurgitate the same thing to different groups over and over again. And so I started thinking, what next? I need a new challenge, because it's only through challenges that you grow. And through some wisdom in my mind, I decided, let me do a personal branding podcast. And so here we are, and halfway through it, I was like, why did I decide to do this? It's so hard. I should have just stuck to my usual monotonous, predictable training days, right? But if you don't take on new challenges, you don't grow. So how does your current job challenge you? How does your current role challenge you? And if it's challenging you well enough, that's great. If it's not challenging you, what new challenges would you like to take on in the next 1 year? Those new challenges could involve taking on an additional skill. It could involve going back to school. It could involve taking on more responsibility within your organization. And by the way, if you're in employment, there's nothing wrong with asking your boss to give you more responsibility. Just make sure you don't drop the ball when they do give you that additional responsibility. A big part of evaluating your personal brand is to also analyze how often you learn new things, even when things are business as usual. So, third question is, what new things have you learned in the last, say, 90 days? And when I say what new things have you learned, I don't mean some random fun fact from Uber Facts. Like, what new skills have you taken on? What hobbies have you added to your roster? What new book have you read? What language are you getting into? Like, what newness have you brought into your life in the last 90 days? Write 5 things. And then I'm sure someone who was doing something else was like, what new things have I learned? Yeah, what new things have you learned in the last 90 days? I know. And actually, one of the ways, again, it is said, if you're not learning, you're not growing, right? So one of the things that I personally like to do is always challenge myself to learn something new, even if it's not necessarily 90 days, because life moves a bit too fast nowadays, at least in 6 months. Learn a new skill, learn some new bits of information, go down a rabbit hole about something new that you probably were not interested in before. That sort of ensures that you continue to grow as a person. If you've not learned anything new in the last 90 days, what 2 or 3 new things do you think you can challenge yourself to take on or to learn within the next 6 months? It is said that your net worth is equivalent to your network, right? And it's always so important. Go to any personal, professional development course and they'll talk about networking. So before we talk about networking, and I might actually just have an entire episode about networking. If you'd like me to do that, please put a comment in the comment section below and I just might. But when it comes to networking, what new contacts, useful contacts, have you gained in the last 90 days? Write down 5 actual names of people that you have met that you think will add value to your personal brand, to your profession, to your career progression. Maybe you've been wanting to take on a new hobby. Like, I know someone who wants to get into Muay Thai, and they just found a contact for someone who does Muay Thai classes. So it does not just have to be within your profession, just anything that makes you grow as a wholesome person. You want to start riding bicycles for leisure and you don't know where to start. I actually met a group of women who go cycling like to Mombasa and back, like some madness, the other day at an event. Not relevant for me, but it could be relevant for you. You get what I mean, right? So what new contacts have you added to your database over the last 90 days that are relevant to your personal and professional development, or to even your spiritual growth? If you've been a hermit, that's fine. Take on the challenge and ensure that at least within the next 30 days, not this one, I'm not giving you 6 months. Within the next 30 days, you meet 2 or 3 new people that can add value to your personal and in your professional life, that can help you take on a new skill, help you learn a new hobby, help you develop your personal, it could be health, it could be nutrition, whatever it is that you think you need to develop or you need to build on, so it can be a wholesome person. Right? Challenge accepted. Just write in the comment section, challenge accepted, and then we can move on. And lastly, remember, personal branding is all about visibility. So what have you done in the last 6 months that add to your public visibility program? And when I say public visibility, I mean public, i.e. the people who you need to be visible to. We talked about this at length in episode 7. So if you have not listened to the episode about personal brand visibility, please go back and listen to it. It's very useful. So what does your current personal brand visibility program consist of? And if there's nothing specific that you're doing, that episode on personal brand visibility will help you curate or become intentional on doing 1 or 2 things over the next 2 to 3 months that can make you become more visible to the right people through multiple channels. So in summary, your personal brand equity consists of the intangible value that you bring to your organization. This could be whether you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, or whether you're employed. Your personal brand equity consists of the relationships that you have built that help further your career progression, again, whether you're self-employed or employed. And your personal brand equity consists of the tangible value that you bring to the organization that you work for in terms of revenue and growth. Because remember, we are all in business to be able to make some money, right? And your personal brand equity consists of the tangible value you're able to bring to your organization, to your home, to your community in terms of value and growth. Remember, personal branding is a journey, not a destination, and developing your personal brand equity is a lifelong endeavor. So ensure that you're always intentional in everything that you do, be it in your private life, in your public life, in your career, in growing your business, and in your own personal, spiritual, and wellness growth, so that you can be able to develop an amazingly strong and consistent personal brand. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Personal Branding Podcast. Remember to share, like, comment, and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on all conversations around personal branding.